Mr. Feinstein, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Singh,
Here.
Commissioner Reese, Commissioner Paul,
Here.
Commissioner Greavy,
Present.
Commissioner Matthews,
Here.
and Commissioner Matthews is participating remotely tonight. Commissioner Warblin,
Good evening and here.
and Vice Chairperson Warblin, and Chairperson Kennedy.
Present. All right, information on providing public comments. Persons wishing to address the Planning Commission on subjects not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, provided that no action may be taken on an off-agenda item except as authorized by law. Off-agenda items from the public will be taken under consideration without discussion by the commission and may be referred to staff. And comments will be accepted in person and via Zoom. Public comment instructions. To speak on an agenda item, please complete a speaker's card and give it to the secretary before the meeting, or at the latest, prior to the public comments on the item on the agenda. When joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press 9 on your phone, star 9 on your phone to request to speak. You'll be called on by name and we'll have 3 minutes to speak. Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Grady, will you please lead us?
Please join me in the salute to our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was nice and robust. Thank you, sir. Item 4, approval of the agenda. Next is the approval of our agenda tonight. Are there any changes to the agenda?
So there are not any changes to the agenda, but I want to note that item A of scheduled matters, Horizon Self-Storage, we are going to have you continue that item tonight. There's some additional public noticing that needed to be done, and so we want to make sure that gets done before that item is heard. We will have you continue that item to our next meeting, which I believe is the 23rd of October. We'll get to that when we get to item A. But otherwise, no changes.
Fantastic, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And a second?
I second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as submitted. All those in favor?
Yeah. Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I realize because we have a remote member, I think we may have to do a roll call
That's
vote.
correct. All votes must be done by
Yeah.
roll call. Thank you.
So with your permission, I'll take a roll
Thank
call
you.
vote.
Please.
Okay. Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Paul,
Aye.
Commissioner Greavy,
Approved.
Commissioner Matthews,
Approved.
Vice Chairperson Warblin,
Approve.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Approve. Okay, now, approval of minutes for our meeting from August 28th. We now have the approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes of August 28th, 2024?
None from staff.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll approve the minutes.
Second?
I do second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Commissioner Greavy,
Approved.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Warblin,
Yes.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Yes. All right. Item number 6, public comments. This is the time for the public to speak on the items not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. I'll now open the public comment period.
All of the speaker cards are for items not on public comments.
Okay, and we have no hands raised, so I will now close the public comment period, and we'll go on to scheduled matters. The next item on the agenda is scheduled matters. For each agendized items, there will be a presentation by city staff. For items that involved application requests, I will ask the applicant to address the commission if they so desire. Then I will open the comment period via Zoom and in-house. I will close the comment period after all comments have been provided and after all our questions regarding the testimony during this comment period have been answered. After the comment period is closed, the commission will deliberate on the item and may have additional questions for staff. We cannot take additional testimony or questions from the public after the comment period is closed. Okay, our first item is item number B, a public hearing requested by Scott Mulvey on behalf of City Church to appeal a condition of approval in 2 use permits approved by the zoning administrator at 743 East Tabor Avenue. The first use permit is for a personal and social development school, and the second is for a medical clinic. Use permits for 743 East Tabor Avenue also. Our presenter is Maylee Sheehan.
Before staff gets started, I just want to briefly state what my role will be tonight. So as the Assistant City Attorney, I will represent and advise the city staff, and we have an outside attorney, Ms. Joanne Tran, who will represent and advise the Planning Commission as the hearing officer of the decision-making body. California law does require the separation of these 2 roles in order to preserve the applicant's due process. So at this point, I will step down, and if needed, I will come back up to the podium to explain the city's position. Thank you.
Right. Well, good evening, commissioners, and everybody who's taken the time to join us tonight. My name is Maylee Sheehan, and I will be presenting the appeal request. In order to understand the appeal fully, I will be providing a very high-level overview of the use permit application process and appeal process. Then I will give a brief history of the city's engagement with City Church, and then go into details about the proposed uses and conditions of approval, so that we can focus at the appeal on hand and end with staff recommendation. The focus of tonight's meeting is on 2 separate use permit applications. The conditional use permit process is intended to allow for activities and uses that may not be suitable for all locations. Through a use permit, specific conditions are applied to an operator to offset any negative impacts the use may cause. Use permits are reviewed by the zoning administrator, which is typically planning division staff. On August 21st, 2024, the zoning administrator approved both of the use permits for City Church. Per our code, the zoning administrator's decision may be appealed within 15 business days by any person. Although the use permits were approved, City Church appealed the zoning administrator's action in a timely manner to address their concerns regarding some conditions of approval. So as I'm sure you've discerned, the action before you this evening is not the typical new development project that's usually the majority of your meetings. So rather tonight, the commission is tasked with determining whether or not to approve or deny the appeal request before you. It is very important to note that it is not within the commission's purview to determine if the citations were appropriately issued or evaluate the total dollar figure of the citations. There is a completely separate process for City Church to appeal the administrative citations, and which City Church has exhausted at this time. So before diving into the use permit and the appeal, I just want to give a very high and brief history of the city's correspondence with City Church over the years. In 2021, a temporary shelter permit was issued to City Church that expired in September of the same year. In 2022, the city first inspected the property and identified multiple violations, including health and safety violations. Throughout the year, the city communicated closely with City Church in order to resolve the violations, but after many months of inaction, the first citation was issued. In 2023, City Church appealed their administrative citations, and at an abatement hearing, it was determined that the citations would be abolished if all of the violations could be resolved within 6 months. Unfortunately, The 6 months passed and that was not met, so the citations were reissued. Over this past year, the city has continued to inspect the property and coordinate with City Church in order to address the outstanding violations. So with the process and background established, I want to shift into the analysis of the use permits proposed. Here you have a contextual map of the city. The red star, somewhat in the center, is the City Church property located at 743 East Tabor Avenue. Some geographic markers are North Texas Street, Fairth-Based Parkway. The Cleo Gordon Elementary School is right across the street, and the Grange Middle School is just to the east of the site. Coming in a little closer, the site is approximately 2 acres and zoned RH, or high-density residential, where a church or place of worship is a permitted by right use. Here is the proposed site plan of the property, where the 2 proposed uses are identified in the red boxes. So on the left side of the screen, this is where the proposed school program is slated, and on the right side would be the medical clinic. So as I just noted, the 2 proposed uses are a school personal and social development and an office medical and dental. So after coordinating closely with City Church on the operations that they would like to provide, staff determined that these were the 2 closest land uses per our zoning ordinance to apply to the property. On the screen, I have the exact definitions of the uses. I won't take the time to read paragraphs at you, but briefly, the school is an establishment that offers education and training and social skills, life skills, employment counseling, basic job training, and similar educational programs. An office medical dental is what it sounds. It is an office that provides outpatient medical, mental health, surgical, or personal health services. So with those land use definitions in mind, we can review City Church's proposed activities. As previously mentioned, there are 2 separate use permits, 1 for each use. The school program is slated to provide food, clothing, and resources to all participants. It is structured into a 5-phased program, starting with teaching life skills, assessing medical needs, and providing proper identification. Then it moves into communication skills, basic computer skills, job searching, financial management, and budgeting, and then finally securing employment, opening a bank account, and finding permanent housing. The medical clinic would be open to the general public and provide consultations, prescriptions, and minor wound care. It has been presented to staff that the clinic will not fill prescriptions, but it may dispense medications as appropriate. To support these proposed uses, staff has prepared several permit conditions of approval. I'd like to take some time to highlight the key ones. So this is not all of the conditions. The use permits were part of your Planning Commission packet attached to the resolution. Highlighting these key ones, starting with the school program, there are conditions that require the classroom areas of the existing building to be improved or converted, constructed to meet the Group E occupancy consistent with the California Building Code. The program is limited to a maximum of 50 participants who must be 18 years old or older. Food may be provided, and if food is provided at a certain scale that may produce grease-laden vapors, then additional building permits would be required to improve the kitchen to meet Solano County environmental health and city requirements. For the medical clinic, again, a portion of the building that is dedicated towards the clinic needs to be improved to meet California Building Code requirements. Proper licenses and/or certificates must be obtained from the California Department of Healthcare Services, and the medical operator hosting the clinic is responsible for obtaining and maintaining those licenses and certificates. Continuing the key conditions, these are conditions that are applied to both of the use permits. So all administrative citations must be paid or a payment plan put in place. This is identified in red as that is the condition that is subject for the appeal this evening. Some additional conditions for both of the permits include all illegal construction to be permitted, all illegal activities to cease unless properly authorized. So that would include any current residential lodging or safe park programs. Both of the use permits have listed hours of operation, which was coordinated closely with the city church. And lastly, both of the uses would be subject to annual inspections by the community development and fire departments. Honing in on the appeal request, the appellant is requesting that the condition requiring payment for the administrative citations be removed. It is noted as condition number 2 in both of the use permits in your resolution. The appellant cites that the condition is punitive and unrelated to the proposed land uses. Furthermore, they assert that it may violate the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. Staff does not concur with these appeal justifications. In this instance, the proposed uses were operating illegally without city oversight well before the applications were submitted. In 2022, we began working with the appellant to address the unsafe and unpermitted improvements and activities. And these conditions would provide a level of certainty that those remaining violations are addressed. And it is essential for staff to make the findings of approval that the uses will not be a nuisance. Additionally, our city attorney's office has reviewed the RLUIPA claims and finds that there are no laws to substantiate the assertion. Bringing all that information back together again in summary, City Church is appealing the condition to resolve the outstanding administrative citations for both permits. The additional conditions of approval that include the building occupancy, permitting illegal construction, ceasing illegal operations, annual inspections, and other specific operational conditions were not a part of the appellant's appeal. So once again, the commission is being tasked tonight to determine whether to approve or deny this appeal. An approval of the appeal would grant City Church's request, approving both the use permits without the condition number 2 requiring the payment of the administrative citations. Denying the appeal would uphold the zoning administrator's action that approved both the permits with the conditions as written. So staff recommends that the commission adopt resolution number PC 2024-10, which would deny the appeal and affirm the zoning administrator's decision to approve the permits with conditions as written. And of course, I am more than happy to answer any questions you have. I also have several colleagues from the various divisions and departments that have worked on this project over the last 3 years. That includes our fire department, our building division, our homeless services division, and our code enforcement. And with that, I will turn it over to the commission. Thank you.
Maylee, thank you very much. Okay, now is this, commissioners, now it's time for staff questions. Please hold your comments or deliberations on the item until after the public hearing is closed. Does anybody have any questions for staff? We'll start with Commissioner Singh.
Yes, thank you. It's really just a point of clarification. So today's hearing is not about, well, actually, it is outside planning, so it's outside planning commission scope to either reduce or increase or make any variances to condition number 2, which is, I believe, currently $310,000. It's either to approve or deny the appeal, right?
That is correct. So the process for the administrative citations is separate and away from the Planning Commission. As I noted, there was an abatement hearing to address those citations, so that process has already been completed. It is up to the commission tonight to determine whether or not you believe these use permits should include the condition that requires either those citations be paid in full or a payment plan put in place before operation can begin.
Gotcha, understood. And then for that payment plan option, it would be on that $310,000 fine, right?
It would be on the administrative citations, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Reese, no questions?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Paul?
Once we hear the appellant, and I might have a few questions from the staff and the appellant. Let's hear the appellant first.
Okay. Commissioner Greedy? No. Commissioner Matthews? Commissioner Matthews, do you have any questions? Hope he's not frozen. Are you on mute?
No questions at this time.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Werblin?
Hi, good evening. One comment, I noticed that this is not for staff, but there are people in the waiting room and there are empty chairs. If anyone wants to come into the chambers, you're more than welcome. And then my question is, would you mind going back a slide, please? So the two actions that we have are approve or deny. Is there an option with any caveats with the approval or the denial as far as the commissioners are concerned?
So when it comes to the denial, if you were to deny this appeal, the actions the zoning administrator took would be upheld. So essentially, both of the permits would still be approved with all of those conditions as written. If you wanted something other than denying and sticking to the zoning administrator's request, you could still approve these use permits with modifications to the conditions. We would need direction as to exactly what you're looking for those conditions. If you are looking to completely just remove condition number 2 per the appellant's request, then you would be looking to approve the appeal.
Thank
Does
you
that
for
clarify?
Yes, thank you for clarifying.
All right, so as most of you know, I usually have questions. How many of the citations are still outstanding today?
So I don't want to misspeak. I would like to bring a colleague up just to make sure that I have the right quantity. So Jeremy Prophet is coming our way, and he's with our code enforcement.
Good evening. Again, Jeremy Prophet. I oversee the code enforcement unit. So there is currently one outstanding citation, which is this total dollar amount for 2 violations. They're still outstanding at the time when we issued those.
Okay, so everything through the last 2 years, all the citations for all the items have been taken care of except for the citation portion. Is that correct?
So the correct answer would be is previous citations. So the citations that are outstanding are from the abatement hearing. So because they did not fulfill their end of the deal for the 6-month timeline, the citations that are outstanding from that hearing are the ones that are outstanding. All the other ones we actually abolished, we removed. We actually reduced fines. There is additional fines, but we took those away and only stayed on topic for within this last year. Does that make sense?
Yes, but a little further, sorry. So the permit for the kitchen has been addressed, the permit for the laundry room has been addressed. So all those issues have been addressed except for the outstanding fines.
Let me have Jeff answer those, just so we're getting the right, because I don't oversee that side.
No
So,
worries.
yep. Jeff is with the building department.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Jeff Thomas. I'm the Chief Building Official for the City of Fairfield. To get at your question, there are, as far as we know at this point, the operations at City Church have ceased, which that in itself does eliminate the outstanding violations that were in effect when the facility was operating. However, if they were, if these are approved and they move forward and they also get their use permit for their boarding house, there are still some outstanding issues that would need to be corrected. They would need to get permits to legalize the unpermitted construction that had occurred in the clinic. They would need to finish construction, which they did obtain a permit for their laundry room facility. They still need to obtain a permit for their unpermitted kitchen. And then they would need to obtain a permit for the change of use of the educational portion, which were classrooms originally as permitted when the church was built, to sleeping rooms, which would make it an R2 occupancy. And so there's still some permitting processes. But provided that the operations that were happening without the proper permits and safety protocols, currently at this time, if they are not occurring, then those violations, aside from the kitchen, although if it's not being used, that's kind of a semantics.
Okay, so the things that have not been done, how much of that would have been, if they had gotten all these things done before this, how much of that construction might have been redundant? In other words, they get it all done, but now they're applying for these permits to do these other operations, would they have had to tear down and then reconfigure stuff or reconstruct to make it approval for this permit summary?
Well, that kind of depends. So in the original construction of the church, the area where the kitchen is now was permitted as future kitchen, and there was never permits obtained for that as far as any of records that we've been able to locate or been provided to us. And then with respect to the previous education rooms, which typically are used in churches for taking children and stuff during Mass and up to those rooms, those had been converted to sleeping rooms. So if they wanted to maintain overnight residency, they would have to obtain what's called a change of use. Depending on what a change of use is from one existing use to another depends on whether or not there are any modifications that are required. In this case, the only thing that likely would be required for that change of use, other than documenting that change of use, is they would have to put a door at the top of the stairwell separating the sleeping area from the church. So it would basically be a residential occupancy to an assembly occupancy. And so it just separates that largely because of in case of fire. So minor modifications.
Got it. All my other questions are for later. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Commissioners, anybody have another follow-up question?
Yes, I have some questions. There was an approximately, I believe, 130-page document attached to this agenda that had dates and what had happened. And so I just candidly want to develop a stronger context for how we got here. And so I have some questions with some of those dates. So I believe on April 12, 2022, that's when multiple city departments conducted an on-site inspection of City Church. And then at that inspection, there were numerous zoning, fire, health, and building code violations, including bug infestations, unsafe living conditions, and unpermitted structures. Were there any instances where the violations pose an immediate threat to public health or safety? And if so, specifically, what were they?
It is my understanding that, yes, there were issues that posed safety to public health. Again, I'm going to speak, but Jeff's going to make his way up, and perhaps Stephen Conti, our fire marshal, can also speak to it. The one item I'll address, because we don't have the representative in the room, is there were some bug infestations that falls under Solano County Environmental Health. We also had staff members from their organization assessing the situation as well. And I'll defer to Steve and Jeff for the structural components.
Hello, Commissioners, again. So yes, unfortunately, there were several issues. There was, environmental health deals with some of those issues. Bed bug infestations. There was a fair amount of mold that was in occurrence because of a roof that was leaking. So there was black mold present everywhere in a majority of the rooms, mostly on the ceilings. Again, because of the unpermitted construction or unpermitted change of use. There was the laundry facility had exposed wires as an example. They had an exterior shower that was like portable shower that was draining into the sewer system, into the storm drain system. And so there was a number of issues that, we were dealing with. The kitchen was unpermitted, so, there were issues with the plumbing. So there's no, without those proper permits, we can't ensure life, health and safety. And then I'll also let the fire marshal speak to the fire sprinkler and fire alarm issues.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Conti, Fire Marshal, Fairfield Fire Department. To speak specifically, we had individuals sleeping in tents that had no egress, exiting smoking hazards, no fire extinguishers at the time, which they were all eventually corrected. But those were some of our concerns, along with ensuring the current sprinkler and fire alarm systems were up to date with our what we call ITM, inspection, testing, and maintenance. And then overall mixed-use occupancy, we had assembly with living quarters that we were unaware of at the time, so that posed some unpermitted questions, along with some standard fire and life safety conditions that we were concerned about, that were addressed eventually, but those were our concerns at the time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just kind of to wrap up the timeline, as you stated, April 12, 2022 is when this case kind of started.
Yes.
I've been on the case from start to finish. These matters, we had multiple administrative hearings to address these because we wanted to resolve these without administrative fines. We're all about compliance. We want to work together. We had 2 administrative hearings that upheld those. We gave a 6-month time to resolve those matters. It wasn't until March of 2024 when we had to red tag this facility to stop the health and safety concerns that we had for our community. So these were never going to be addressed until we had to physically shut them down. So that is important to note as far as our timeline. So.
Gotcha. And so then just so that we are on the same page, April 12, 2022, that is the first time when multiple city departments were on site. So then city and staff got to see and be in there. And it wasn't until 2 years later in March of 2024 until the building was red tagged.
That is correct. The 2022 is the first inspection date where you had multiple divisions on the property, and then
Yes.
throughout the years, there have been several inspections since.
Understood. I have another question as well. Was there a list of violations shared with City Church and a pathway forward to remedying them before getting to this point? And what did that communication look like, if that was the case?
Yes, so there are several forms of communication. Of course, there was verbal, there's also emails, but more formally, you'll see on the screen under 2022, you have a bullet point for a formal correction notice. That's the first written notice that we sent with the list of items that needed to be remedied. And then the notice of order comes from our building official. That's giving them a time frame of, hey, these are the items you must address. If you don't address them within that time frame, then the citations will occur, and that's when the first citation is issued.
Just to add to that, my goal throughout facilitating this was having weekly or monthly check-ins. So not only would our city management team meet with the folks, I would check in weekly, monthly to make sure these timelines were being met. So there was consistent conversation between email, verbal, site visits. We really believe in communication, so.
And I do believe all those documents are included in that quite large staff report you've been provided.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay, I have 2 now. When was the last date or conversations that the city had with the church in regards to the citations and the request by them to lower them? When was the last time there was communication in trying to resolve this issue so it didn't have to come to us?
Do you know when the hearing, when was the hearing that we had?
There was one in February, because I've got questions about that one, but that was February
I
2023.
wholeheartedly could say several times a month for the last 2 years. I've had these conversations because we don't want to fine people. We want to reach compliance, and we care about health and safety. When we can't reach that, I have to move it to the next level. When we don't obtain compliance and there's a health and safety of these folks, we had to go to a red tag.
Okay. Now, back to the abatement hearing that you mentioned. February 2nd, 2023, there was an abatement hearing. And in the attachments that you gave us, and not to, just to correct, it was about 170 pages that we got. The first one was 146, and the next one was like 16. So in our packet, we have a examiner's checklist. And although I may be a boomer, one thing I do understand about the 21st century is whenever you put something in all caps, you're yelling, raising your tone of voice. because my kids have corrected me many times, saying, Dad, don't put in caps, don't, if you're not mad at me. So I have 5 items here, and only one of them is in all caps. And it says, ask the property owner to state why he-she has been unable to comply, and I take that with all aspects, citations up, and why this property should not be declared a nuisance. But I literally went through that 170 pages twice, and nowhere did I find a response that answers that question. All the other ones, we have plenty of documentation, every single citation, every single thing. But did that question not get asked? Or was that information that they presented to you about the whys and wherefores not presented to us by you? Because, as you all know, I'm all about transparency. And when you have a all cap and then there's no documentation beyond that, that raises questions for me. If you'd like, Jeremy, if you'd like to look at it, see.
As Jeremy reviews that, I'll take a moment to answer as I believe it. In several of our meetings with the City Church group, it was expressed that, it takes time to hire architects, engineers, the right people to do the improvements that are required. And of course, it takes funding. So I don't want, for full transparency, as you're discussing, Commissioner Kennedy, obviously time and money is always a component to any project. The portion for us that I think I'll defer to the appellant's team to answer is, throughout the process, we gave them several opportunities to extend those timeframes. We offered them several areas where we could reduce those citations, or we would fully waive them if we had the support and the understanding that the violations would actually be addressed. If the operations had ceased much sooner, I think that would also have given staff the comfort to know that the life and safety violations were not as extreme as we were concerned about when we had several people living in those conditions. But again, I do want to defer to the appellant to have their time and their chance to describe their reasons for not being able to meet those timeframes.
Just real quick, so this appears to be a document from the hearing officer. So I don't want to speak for him, but I interpret this as a checklist of questions that he would ask us. So this is not a document created by me or us.
Right. But the fact that it was a checklist that was given to us as a response from the city, we went through steps A, B, C. And a lot of those questions, there's documentation for each one of those, and copies of the citation stuff. But that specific item, which is all capped, there is no response to that question, where the others do have responses. So that's why I'm curious as to why, it just seems a little different. So
Okay, thank you, sir.
thanks. Okay, with that, I have no hands up. Do you have another question?
I do have a general question for any of the staff. The one thing that I'm noticing here, that this is all during the height of COVID. And so I'm curious how that, because I know it started with this, it seeming collaboration between the city of Fairfield and City Church with this unknown virus, COVID. And how did that play into these dates with, in 2023, the abatement hearing, but more importantly, in 2022, when we meaning the city of Fairfield, started doing these inspections and noting violations and such?
So yes, actually during this same time frame in 2021, you can see that we have a temporary shelter permit. Excuse me, I think I have a slide that can support this a little clearer. Yes, so in 2018, the city actually adopted or declared a shelter crisis, and we created that shelter program based on the state of California's government code that we are in a state of crisis when it comes to homelessness. And so again, in that same roughly time frame of 2020 to 2022, 2023, we created two programs, a temporary shelter program that will allow temporary shelter for the maximum of 9 persons for a 6-month period. And then we also created what we call our emergency shelter program. And that would allow for a larger number of persons for a larger amount of time, and it is also eligible for yearly renewals. Additionally, both of these programs are a no-fee permit, a no-fee program. Both of these programs were presented to City Church at the time. It was my understanding that these programs did not offer enough for City Church. It didn't have the maximum capacity that they were looking for, it did not have the time frame that they were looking for. My colleague Samantha Burrows is here too with our homeless services divisions. If you want to have a better understanding of these programs, or if you have additional questions, I do understand that we had offered to City Church to work with them and maybe find a way to get these programs fitted for their property. But unfortunately, it was not progressed.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, any other? We're all good?
Yes, I have some questions. Yes, appreciate it. So then, from April 12th to September of 2022, that's approximately 6 months. Was there any advancements made by City Church on any of the violations that were raised? Like was there an effort, or, yeah? And I'm not sure if this is a question maybe to staff or if it's a question to City Church. So, yeah.
There was always correspondence, I will say that. We have always been in communication. However, when the due dates would come and go, we were not receiving the paperwork, the permits, the plans, the licenses, whatever it may be, in order to check that box saying this is substantial progress or this is substantial action. And I can defer to my colleagues here who would be a little more intimate with those exact permits and those exact processes. But as you see spelled out on the timelines and in this packet, there's never really been a day that we weren't in communication, and I'm sure the appellant can add to that conversation as well. But the due dates to submit plans or the due dates to get under one of our shelter permits or to get into compliance or to cease operations all came and went without any action.
When you say not any action, so none of the violations were remedied within that 6 months period when the city first came in to now September, and then the next month, well, actually 8 months after April, a notice of correction was issued.
Yeah, I apologize. So there were some, I'm sorry, I must have misheard you. Some of the violations were addressed. So if you can dig through your packet to find the first notice and order, or the first list of violations, I believe there were a total of 9 initially. And as Jeremy had mentioned at the beginning of this question and answer portion, there's only 2 currently outstanding. And I believe Stephen also had noted that the fire sprinkler systems were addressed. We did end up receiving some permits for the unpermitted work, I believe, with Jeff Thomas and his team, but there are still some outstanding and some that have not moved forward.
Thank you.
Okay, see no other questions by the commission. I will now open the public hearing, and I have quite a few cards, but we will start with Pastor Scott Mulvey from City Church. And to remind everybody, as this goes, as Scott's done, and we go on to the next names, everybody will have 3 minutes to speak. Pastor Mulvey will give you additional time so you can relate to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all being here and hearing our story. I honestly don't know.
I don't think the microphone's on. Can you press a little
The
button?
green light is on.
It is? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin. There's so much to say, and obviously you have a 120-some page packet. I'm sure we could produce something of that nature. Maybe we had the opportunity to, if so, I didn't know, or we would have done so. But the narrative has a lot of truth, but the narrative is also missing quite a bit. The first visit from the city, mind you, we've been doing this for 17 years, 16, 17 years. And initially, when we inquired whether we could do this, I know zoning and made a living at high density for a span of my life. So I've dealt with cities throughout the Central California corridor. I knew we were zoned a commercial building and housing was not an option. But through the assisting of some of our staff, I went to the planning department and met with the planner on the counter, planner on duty, gave him the APN number, and he told me at the counter that yes, we're a commercial building, but that we held a dual zone, that we also held a high density zone, and that we could house in the building. And I asked him at that time, I said, how many people can we house in the building? And he said, as many as the building will hold as long as you have showers. We had bathrooms, but no showers. So pastor friends came down from Sacramento. I borrowed, the church was broke, it was bankrupt. It was actually in foreclosure. Our organization were making the payments to keep it out of foreclosure. And I borrowed $26,000 to build out the shower facilities, which we did. And then we proceeded to open and reach out to our side of the community, which was in need. Like I said, we've done that for years. We've had a handful of inspections. I can, off the top of my head, count 3 in the 15 years that we were doing this. The most prominent inspection is when the city came to us and asked us to launch what they called a pop-up program. And at that time, we didn't have the funds to do that. They said, well, we'll buy you tents and we'll provide Chromebooks if you'll do it. It was our feeling that we could take people that were homeless and find employment for them, and if we could find employment, they would work. We did a survey, and the majority said, if you can get me a job, I will go to work. So we, with the city, provided those tents. They were bought at the cheap
Big Five?
camping store, Big Five. And they lasted about 6 months. It was a 6-month program. The desire was to show that City Church could do it, and hopefully other churches would buy in and try to do it themselves as well. It was very successful. Almost 80% of those that came in, we found jobs and they've moved on, gotten their own place. Some went back to family and left the state. Those tents were approved by the fire department and the building department as inferior as they were approved. When the tents fell apart, the program had come to an end. My feeling that they were approved, we went out and bought military tents from the East Coast, had them shipped down to us, and we began to do some housing in military tents. In our program, those that would come in, initially, it was a 1-year program, very successful, most successful in this county, according to probation. A couple of years ago, they came out and did a movie about us and our success and all of that. I would say that we're the most successful in Northern California. Our success rate is that high. We took people that came in initially and allowed them to go into the tents. We have flooring in the tents. That's raised floor. Now, mind you, these are military tents. They're the same tents that your sons and daughters, if they're deployed, are sleeping in tonight in Iraq or other parts of the world where they're deployed. At that time, the building department and the fire department came out and approved those tents. We were required to put extinguishers in them, which we did. They were fire rated by the government, so they passed fire department fire codes. And we had the okay to house there, which we did. So moving fast forward, now a couple of years, moving up a couple of years, we received a visit by the city, which came out in force. I think there's about 14, 15 people that came out. Looked kind of like a raid. And I happened to not be on site at the time. They threatened our staff and said, unless you comply, we're going to red tag this building and move everybody off the property. I got a call from our staff and said, what do we do? I said, well, open all the rooms and let them look wherever they want to look. They went over every square inch of that building. They even inspected the baptistry. From that, this was a Thursday before Good Friday, holiday weekend. I was given 3 days to comply or be red tagged. And at that moment, I fought back. I said, you're not going to do that. Because if you march 50 people across this property and onto that sidewalk, I will have every news agency out here to see it. I will name you by name, and you're going to have to put me in the back of a police car. You will not do that without arresting me. So they backed off and said, okay, whoa, we'll wait, we'll work with you, don't, calm down. And I said, okay, let us get an engineer out, certify the roof, certify the trusses. He is here today, and he will speak on that behalf. From there, it began a nightmare from hell, and timelines, and we spent $150,000 that we did not have, was gifted to us to upgrade the fire system for the fire department, backflow devices. It's a 54-year-old building. It should have been torn down and rebuilt, quite honestly. But we kept trying to keep pace with what they were asking. Now, I'll cut this really short. They have said that they gave us 6 months. That's true. We reached an agreement for 6 months. But what they did not tell you, that in that agreement, we were told that if we needed longer time, we could request it in the 5th month and it would probably be granted. We, at the onstart, said we can't do this in 6 months because at that time we were not filing for a CUP, we were filing for an amendment to the zone, which requires extensive architectural drawings. I'm sure you know. And I, with our architect, said it is impossible to meet the timeline. I know I've used to do this in Central California. I've done it in many, many towns. It takes me a year to put that together, just that aspect. And they said, well, request for the continuance. I requested in the 5th month, as was instructed, for the continuance. I addressed it in email form to the arbitrator, and he said that he would ask zoning to sign off. Zoning said, we will not sign off. There is no continuance. So there you get the first offense fines that we did not comply with in a timely manner. And it just went on from there. We sent email after email. We need more time. We've done this, we've done that. We're trying to finish it up. My gosh, you want us to rebuild half this building, and we can only do so much. We don't have the funds. We're dependent on volunteer labor, and fortunately, we had volunteers step up. We re-roofed the building, certified the trusses, put in the backflow devices, upgraded the sprinkler system and alarm system with the fire department. We did everything that we were asked as quickly as we could. And when we couldn't, we were upfront about it. We're trying, we've got this in motion, but we can't get it done in the timeline that you have stated. So another fine, and another fine, and another fine. And quite honestly, the truth be told is, without mentioning any names, I was told by 2 people not to worry, that the fines were just there to show force and to scare us, that there would never be an attempt to collect. I didn't know that that was false. They were making an attempt to collect, and the fines went from 17, I think, if I remember correctly, to 77, to 210, to 310, and I had no idea where it was coming from. We finally inquired in a meeting at the 4th floor, and we were told that the fines, the fees, the fines are compounded monthly, and they keep almost doubling. So, shoot, it stopped at 300 because I wrote the city manager and the mayor and vice mayor and said, where are these fines coming from? There's nobody on the property. Why are you fining us? Stop the madness. So apparently it stopped, because if it wouldn't have stopped, we'd probably owe $600,000 today, and it would just keep going. We don't have the money to do that. So we provided a service for 17 years. We want to continue to provide that service. I think we do well. We're the best at it. We have the highest success rate. If you allow that 310 to be a condition, we're not asking you, we can't ask you to remove it, but we can ask you to set it aside, let us move forward, let us do what we do to help the city. There are people out on the street, there are people dying, there are people that have no place to go, and all of the other agencies in town charge a fee to be there. We don't charge a fee. People that have no money can come to us. We'll take them in. We want to know that you want a life change experience, and if that's your desire, we're going to give it to you. So let us do Let us do what we do best. It benefits the city. Collecting $310,000 from us to do it, well, I'm telling you, it's just not going to happen. It won't get done. And shame on you. And I don't mean that personally, you, but shame on city officials that say we want to help this, the unfortunate, the unhoused, those incarcerated that want a life change. We want to help them. Well, you have the opportunity to do that tonight. And if you don't do that, then it says to me that there really is an interest in helping that class of people. There really isn't an interest. You have nothing to lose by waiving $310,000, trust me. Nothing to lose. But you have everything to gain, because we will make an impact in a population that nobody else really is in this town. And I'll tell you, there's no other agencies that do what we do at the level that we do it, quite honestly. So I took more than 2 minutes, so I apologize.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll go on to the next set of speakers, and you will each have 3 minutes to present. I'm going to call 2 names at a time, so the first person will speak first, and then the second one will be in line, and then I'll call one after that. So we always have one backup ready to go. So the first name, Tim Deming, AIA. And second will be Jack Batson.
Good evening. I'm Tim Deming. I'm the architect and engineer for the church. This is the second time I've been employed by the church. First was back in 2017, and this time I started with the corrections to the roof. Back in 17, I was working with the city and the church to put containered housing on site at the city's request. That project didn't go through. There are too many issues with container housing to meet building code, which it would have to do. Currently, we're at the same situation, meeting building code with a very, very old building. We know that there's a change of use. When I started this project, we were informed that we needed to do a change of zone, a rezone for the property. After a lot of conversation and a request back to the city to forego the fees for filing for that kind of process, we regrouped one of these hiatuses that you might see, and we approached it as a conditional use permit. The difference in city fees is $25,000 between the two, just the difference between the two, and accomplishes nothing other than, well, it would have been longer to do the rezoning, and it would have cost more money. That was the direction that we were told to go. We didn't. Okay. I am working with the church. We have a number of permits that we know we have to submit in. We can't turn them in until the conditional use permits are approved. We can't be issued a building permit to meet any of these requirements. Can't be done. So what we need you to do, forego item number 2 so that we can proceed as fast as possible to meet the remaining conditions and get everybody happy. That's basically where we're at. If item 2 stays on the books, I don't know if it's going to ever happen. It's up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Batson and Raleigh Galgan. And also, when you see my blue folder, that's 15 seconds. So I won't interrupt you and tell you 15 seconds to disturb you. I'll just put up this so you'll understand, because I know you
Good,
listen.
and I appreciate hearing us after the briefing and the hearing and your questions. That's very nice. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Feinstein and City Planning Commission. I'm Jack Batson. I'm a resident of Fairfield. I've followed this also for 2 years because I've been to City Church, and they do the work. They really do. It's an effective program, and I want to remind you, it fits with the city objectives. And what we need in this city is to get people off the street and into housing and changed, and that works. The sleep and park and sleep operation works. People come who are hanging on to that car, and they're hanging on to their job, and they can get a shower and they can get food. What a deal. It's a great program. And of course, you have it in your hands tonight. If that $310,000 sticks, I think the whole program collapses. I mean, they're not going to be able to pay $310,000. I have lots of questions on how it mounted so fast. Pastor says he wasn't advised of those mountings. But let's face it, it's a poor church. And they're moving ahead. There is progress, not to satisfy staff, that's clear, but there is progress. And I would like to just ask you to do this thing and allow them to move ahead before they have to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Raleigh Galligan, and then Carol Rickman.
Yes, Commissioners, I'm impressed by your transparency and your patience in going through the process. It really is impressive. I'm from Vacaville. I'd like to talk about my personal relationship with City Church, my professional as a pastor, and then a political perspective. But personally, 2 years ago, this month, probably this week, my granddaughter, 23 years of age, was motel to motel, addicted to fentanyl here in Solano County. She didn't have any health insurance. Her parents tried to get her to move to Mobile with them as they moved out of Solano County, but she wasn't going. And, you know, it's roulette, Russian roulette, if you know anything about fentanyl. And so we were able to get her into the clinic with Dr. Klein. She didn't have any medical insurance, and because of that, her life was saved. And not only that, my great-grandson's life was saved because she was pregnant at that time, and he happened to be an OBGYN, and we got her into rehab. And so I have a very personal stake in this. Now, professionally, I worked with the homeless of Vacaville for 10 years. I know every operation in Northern California. I've been to them all, and City Church does it well. They do it well. And I have referred probably up to 100 people to rehabs throughout this area, and we were very successful. But Mission Solano, AKA Shelter Solano, we have Opportunity House, but City Church, no longer can we send them if we don't have a budget, which we don't, as volunteers, because all ours were volunteers. And so they filled a gap, and a gap that nobody else was filling. And so I just cheer Pastor Mulvaney on. But then politically, you know, it was so fair. The staff did a great job. I appreciate Pastor Scott's response to it, but it feels political. Okay, I'm just saying perception. Perception is, it feels punitive. That $310,000 feels very punitive, and it almost reminds me, you know, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. You know where that's from. Show me the church, I'll show you the code violation. You could shut down every church in Vacaville if you want, and in Fairfield if you want, in Solano County. That's what it feels like. It feels like, and I know that may not be your intention, that you want to shut down this church. Keep the fine for $300,000, and it's a shot over the bow of other places of worship. Because you can come in with 25 people with the code man, and you show me the church, you show me the place of worship, and we'll show you the violation. So that's what I'm concerned about. I hope I'm not right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carol Rickman, and then Linda Dunn.
Good evening. My name is Carol Rickman. I am one of those people that was homeless. So, I mean, you know, Pastor, I don't know, I would probably be dead if Pastor Scott hadn't have been that very church that saved my life. I thank God for that church. I mean, you know, people are dying every day because they don't have a place to go to like that. People have died because that church has been shut down. And I just pray that you all will have mercy and grace on that man of God that not only preaches God's word, but give you the wisdom, the skill, the mindset to go out here in this world, in this bad, corrupted generation, and have a place to work and have a place to lay your head and not charge you and give you a warm meal, 3 meals a day to eat. God, if I had to be for Pastor Scott's church, where would I be? I'd probably be 6 feet under or drug infested. Who knows? Only God. But I pray that you all have mercy and give him grace on this. I don't even know all the big words that you all are using. I'm over 3,000 miles. I came from Nashville, Tennessee. But never been homeless a day of my life until I got to California. Love this place. It's a beautiful country. But I've never seen as many homeless people in my life. Never drug-infested homeless. I thank God for Pastor Scott. He is a man of God that God is using to save people's life like me.
Thank you. Linda Dunn, and then Jerry Klein.
Good evening. As Pastor Scott spoke earlier about success, I am one of those success cases right here. In 2007, I was one of the first 5 ladies to start that program at City Church. I thank God that he gave Pastor Scott the vision to house women that were on the streets, on drugs, with no hope or sense of direction or purpose for life. I was just existing. The program is Christ-centered and it saved and changed my life. I am no longer existing, but I am living. And I am living a godly life that Christ has called me to live. I stand before you clean and sober. 17 years. Instead of you trying to close City Church homeless program, you need to be contributing toward it to help save lives and remove the unhousing, those on drugs, and those who need a safe place to park for the night, and those who need help. What Pastor Scott is doing is a blessing, and we need more churches like this to step up and do God's work, and help those who can't help themselves. Where is your heart? Help God's people and help City Church. Forgive that debt. That man is changing lives and helping these people in this city. I thank you so much. Praise you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Klein, and then John Takeuchi.
Thanks for allowing me to speak, and I appreciate the time. I'm Dr. Klein. I am a volunteer physician at the healthcare program that we're providing there. And I'd be willing to stick around afterwards to answer any questions for you guys. From my perspective, I think the city staff is well-intentioned, good-hearted people who are trying to do their job. And I think they're trying to keep people safe, and they're trying to make sure that all the legal requirements are followed. But I applaud them for that. I think what's clear to me is that this fine is a punitive action, and that it is going to stand in the way of making progress forward. I understand that tonight the decision is whether to make this a part of the stipulation for the zoning, and I don't think it needs to be in the zoning stipulation. I really think you can separate that allow the church to continue to make progress to solving solutions that we all care about, the things that we all care about. We think of this as a homeless issue, and it's really not a homeless issue. You know, this may be a drug addiction issue. This may be a sexual trafficking issue. This may be a severe mental illness issue. This is an issue of Medi-Cal not being sufficient. This excellent insurance, but horrible access. You cannot find a doctor to see patients who are in need. This is a problem that when you have Medi-Cal in Solano County and you move to Sacramento County, you no longer have services. You're not eligible. It's all based on where you live. And this is a problem with if you don't have an address, if you don't have a home, how are you going to get services? The root issue and the thing that we're trying to do is this is truly an identity issue. These are the people that come into, and people that I love, people that are here tonight, and people that I love deeply. They've had hard lives. They've had adverse childhood events. They've had tremendous trauma. They've had tremendous assault, sexual abuse, physical abuse, things that are that no person should have to endure. And what they don't understand is that they're worth it, that they are truly human, right? They don't understand that they're made in the image of God, and that's what we're doing at this facility. It's a physical problem, it's a mental problem, and it's a spiritual problem, and it takes an integrative approach to do this. And so the fine is standing in the way of providing that level of service. Put the fine to one side. Allow us to do the thing that the church has done for over 2,000 years, and that's serve the people of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. John Takeuchi, and then Deb Trefethen.
Yeah, good evening. I'm John Takeuchi. I'm a member of the Central Solano Citizen Taxpayer Group. We don't normally come to this meeting, but tonight we have an issue. There's let me start. Remember a couple months ago, the city supports 3 or 4 different things, Missions, Solano, Samoa, several of them, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay? They don't give a dime to City Church. Okay? In that report, they also indicated their success rate. Okay, how many people did they turn around? And the one getting the most money had the lowest score. That doesn't make any sense to us taxpayers. Okay? So what I'm saying is the success rate of City Church far outstrips all 3 others that I know of. You need to, my recommendation tonight to you is don't do either of the options that the staff gave you. Turn this thing back to the city council and tell them to start working with the people to get results. That's what us taxpayers want. We want our bucks to go where they do some good. Okay? That's all I'm asking you. Just turn it back to the city council, put it back in their laps, and make them come to the right decision. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Deb Trefethen, and then Anna Nicole.
Been sitting too long. Hi, my name is Debbie, and I'm more commonly known around City Church as Nurse Deb, because I am a retired RN, and I have worked with the clinic since the day that we opened it. And I think that, you hear about this $310 fine that there's no way on earth any church could come up with. And I want to turn it back and say, okay, you want to discuss money? Because our clinic alone has saved Fairfield and Solano County millions of dollars in just a couple of years, because we have been seeing enough patients that don't go to the ER as their primary care doctor. And the county and the city pays for that. When anybody has to go to the ER, the city and the county have to pay for that. And we take care of those people that don't have any other options As far as medical care, I found it really interesting the day they came and red tagged us. I was there that day. And they were like, what is this? They didn't even realize that we were there. And we were doing so much good. And I miss our clinic. I love the people that come into that clinic, and I miss it. And I think it is incredibly punitive to say, oh, if you don't pay this fine, which we all know nobody could pay, if you don't pay this fine, then you're not going to be able to take, we're coming on winter. People are going to be getting really sick. And they're going to be horribly sick if we can't help them get off the streets and into this program. I work in the program as well. And I teach a class there, and I do a lot of medication help there. You know, we got to get people off the streets. We have to be able to do that. And we do it successfully. And I really would like you guys to think about how much success we have, as opposed to, you didn't pay a fine. We can't pay those fines anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Nicole, and then after that, after Anna, it'll be Matt Reynolds.
Hello, my name is Anna Nicole, and I'm an advocate for the unhoused and actively do outreach here in Fairfield. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Many of you may have missed your dinner. There's no telling how many people have been missing dinner since Park and Sleep was closed in May. Speaking of dinner, City Church feeds thousands, plural, every month. So asking for $300,000 some dollars from City Church is like asking for gas money for a Tesla. They're already helping you. Like, it's ridiculous. It's just, it's insane. So please consider waiving the fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Reynolds, and then Reggie McKinney.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me? Here we go.
Yep.
Good evening. Matthew McReynolds, Deputy Chief Counsel at Pacific Justice Institute. We represent City Church Fairfield in this application. And I just want to briefly point out a couple of things that I think you're starting to get a sense of from the inspiration that we've heard, as well as from the background. A really, really important background for this appeal is the 15 years that City Church was doing its ministry before the city started the enforcement actions that we're talking about tonight. 15 years of service, approximately, and 17 years total before they were shut down. So what happened to change things? The building didn't change, and the people didn't change, and the homelessness crisis certainly didn't get better. But one thing that did happen was that Pastor Scott responded to some pleas from people in the community and started to become more involved civically. And there appears to be a direct correlation between Pastor Scott's increased civic involvement and the city's punitive enforcement actions. That's just part of the timeline that you have to take account. So what's happened since people have been evicted from City Church Fairfield by the city? Tragically, this is a situation where people have died on the streets of this city. The city church is aware of 4 people, at least, who have tragically passed away since they left the church property as a direct result. So it's easy for you, as it is for me, to sit in an office, to read codes, to look at our spreadsheets, to hand out violations and say, oh, these conditions are inhumane, they're unsafe. Commissioners, life on the streets is unsafe. And what the church was doing was not a nuisance, it was a necessity. for this community. I'll just wrap up by saying that I hope you had an opportunity to look at the letter that was included in the packet that we've sent to city officials, which lays out our legal concerns. Just within the last couple of years, we've been doing this kind of work for more than 25 years on the West Coast. Just within the past couple of years, cities from Southern California to Oregon have been rebuked by the federal courts for shutting down homeless ministries in very similar fashion. The least that you can do tonight, we know you can't fix everything, but by setting aside condition number 2, you can at least allow this project to move forward and start to get back to a place where they can save lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reggie McKinney, and then Tanya Van Hook.
Yes, good evening. My name is Reginald McKinney, and I have a passion of love now. Of 2020, I come to City Church. Gave up hope, angry at life, and when I came to the program, Pastor Scott at the time took his time, brought me in his office, and I shared with him, just got out of prison or whatever. At the time, I'm asking for the help down at the prison, and probation and all this. They said nothing we can do for you. So he took me in, did his program, and I used to always gripe. Every Saturday, we go down to the city, Fairfield, clean up the jails, the sidewalks, pick up all the trash. So as I started progressing, I started learning, and I started to have a heart for other people. So being there, I got accepted to go to Barber College. I got my certificate, the probation, I'm doing everything. They come do a video at City Church of me cutting the homeless hair, and that's on YouTube from Probation of Solano. And the reason why I'm coming to show the love that I learned from City Church for my family, as far as now, I can say I work for Archway, Sober and Living Recovery, and on the weekends, I cut the homeless hair and people that need cuts. And I do that from the heart because they opened their heart for me when I came to City Church. And that's one thing I learned about, how to love people. And I'm just here to support my family, that's all.
Thank you, sir. Tanya Van Hook, and then Lorenzo Perez.
Present. Hello, everybody. So my name is Tanya Van Hook. I went to City Church in 2020 after 28 years using drugs. And City Church took me in. I didn't know nothing about Fairfield, nothing about City Church, nothing. So now, 4 years later, almost 5, because January 7th, it'll be 5, that I've been clean and sober, right? And now I'm a staff there at City Church. Yes, I give food out to the homeless every day, and it's such a blessing. And I went through the program. I went through the program myself, so I know all about the program. So I tell people about it all the time, and I want the people to come back so that I can help them and encourage them and tell them to be like how I was. I didn't know crap coming in. I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't even know how to talk. I didn't know how to communicate. City Church taught me how to communicate. They taught me how to love on people. They taught me how to give back. Pastor Scott and Pastor Deborah are so beautiful. They like my family. I love them. I can't talk about City Church without crying because they gave my life back. They gave my whole life back. I can't even thank them enough. I really can. And so I used to do the clothing tent where we would give out free clothes, and we had strike force. People would come, the homeless, and we feed them, and we love on them, and we tell them about hope. And that's what City Church does for people. It gives them hope. You ain't nothing if you ain't got no hope. So I just ask that you remove it, right? And let us start giving hope back to people. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Lorenzo Perez, and then Deborah Mulvey.
Hello, thank you guys for being here. All praise and honor goes glory, and all praises and honor and glory goes to God Almighty for having this opportunity to speak to you guys about this program that Pastor Scott Mulvey has. He's not just a hearer of the word; he's a doer, and I'm here to witness. He's helped a lot of homeless, a lot of drug addicts, a lot of criminals recover and be redeemed from the behaviors that's out there, and we're plagued with drugs. There's a homeless crisis going on, and I was sitting in jail this last time, asking God, Lord, I was going to the other side. I was running from God. I didn't want to believe in God, but I ran to God because I believe I got a visit from Him, and He put the fear of the Lord inside of me, and He took me on a journey that night, and I asked Him, you know what? Well, Lord, if you want me to serve you, put me in a place where it's a God program. It's your guys' program. And I came from Modesto, California, and he sent me up here to Fairfield, California, to your guys' city, and he sent me to City Church, and it's a God program. The program it helped me. It gave me eyes to see God more and to visualize the Lord and know that there is the Lord Jesus Christ out there that will save us and save our souls. And I totally surrendered, gave my life to Him, and He redeemed me from alcoholism, redeemed me from my criminal activities. He redeemed me from my drug addiction. Gave me a home so far to live in. And Pastor Scott in the program, they're gonna put me on a path where they're gonna show me responsibilities in life, get a job. I've done that for a lot of years, but they're going to reteach me because I'm going to become a student, and I'm here to learn. And they're going to guide me, and they're going to help me, and they're going to help everybody else in this program that wants to, come to the program. They're going to help us get a future, and I'm looking forward. And I'm asking you guys to drop the penalty charge, and let's just all move forward, and let's make Fairfield a greater place to live in. In Jesus' name.
Thank you, Lorenzo. The last card I have is Deborah Mulvey. So if anybody else would like to speak, we have some speaker cards up front and in back, and please feel free to fill those out. Deborah.
Okay. I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for hearing all of our stories and all of the truth that we want to express. We love people a lot at City Church. These are the people that most people don't love. So we are reaching out to the community, and our love goes forth, and people know that we are offering this to them, and that's why we're so successful. I was surprised that a 120-page document was handed out again. The last meeting when we asked to get the fees waived at the city council, they were handed an 84-page document, and we didn't get it at all either, just like we didn't get this one. So we don't have anything that we could offer you as a defense or anything because we just didn't know about it. I want you to know that we did everything and more that the city asked us to do. We worked so hard and diligently. These people most of them did it. They showed up, we cleaned up everything, we finally got the laundry room done, the roof got put on this weekend, so we're ready to move in with those permits and stuff and get that all signed off. We take money from the people that donate to us. We don't get any money from the city of Fairfield, never have, never will. We got a little money during the pop-ups, but that was short-lived. We get money from people, like these people right here, that give us money, and we don't get a dime from the city. So that should be a very attractive attribute. The rainy season is coming. We're going to have a lot of rain out there pretty soon, a lot of homeless people getting sick, and a lot of families being desperate. And we want to help them. So we need to get these fines and whatnot pushed aside. We've been doing this for 17 years. What in the heck came about that we got so attacked? 15 years we had nothing. Even schools don't even get inspected. And I know that because I worked for the school district for a while. But I'm telling you, we got attacked. And it seemingly is coincidental when Scott Mulvey ran for city council and announced his running. And all of a sudden, we had 18 cops with guns, coming in on the property, looking very intimidating, and we're supposed to just welcome them with open arms and, yeah, come on in. We don't care. We let them come in a lot of times. But the times that we felt like we weren't available, we just couldn't allow them to come on the property. And why are you trying to demise City Church, or trying to bring about our demise? We have been, what do you call that? There's something about where no good deed goes unpunished. So we feel like we've been dragged through the mud. Scott and I used to be 22 before this started. And we are not that anymore. We have been stretched to 10 feet tall, and we're going to keep going. So thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. We have one hand online. We'll go online next, and then I'll do the last two cards that we just received.
Next speaker is San Wong. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Leveling such ludicrous penalty against City Church will send a chilling effect to those who want to serve as Jesus did. He healed and fed at no cost. Such a penalty will send a message to this and many communities, including mine, that what Jesus did was wrong, and that only the government can heal and house and feed the vulnerable in our society. Now, we clearly see currently that the government has not been effective nor efficient in taking care of those in the hurricane-ridden areas in Florida and the Carolinas. Better yet, we even see all these inefficiencies all around here in California. Now, during these very difficult past 4 years, we need all the frontline, boots on the ground volunteers we can get to help each other in need. Let's not make volunteerism a 4-letter word. In fact, it's a 12-letter word. Please allow the people at City Church to continue to serve with the compassion as Jesus Christ did. Can you imagine penalizing Jesus when he fed the 15 to 20,000 people? Can you imagine penalizing Jesus who healed the blind? I hope you can all see that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I have Daniel, is it Ranger? Ranger? Ranger. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say that I was homeless in the tents, smoking meth, running around the streets, in and out of jail, stealing. And I came to City Church, and Pastor Scott and Pastor Deborah, they've been so generous to open up their house. I got a roof over my head. I got back to work, and now I could take care of my child support situation. And now I got a little grip on life where they gave me enough confidence to know that that things are possible, and it does work. Thank you.
Denise Johnson.
are you doing? I am a business consultant, and I've been attending City Church for like 3 years plus now. And I teach the CEO boot camp. And even set aside, even if you don't believe in the church, even Jesus Christ or anything like that, my position and my serving there just makes business sense. I'm a business consultant, work for one of the biggest consulting companies globally, and I understand business. And using my talents and the money, if you set aside everything else, it just makes business sense to put people that are willing and have the heart to serve and bring up the skills in other people and put them back to work in your city as opposed to sleeping on the streets, using drugs, or being homeless, or their families not being taken care of. It just makes business sense. $310,000 for the church to pay that takes away their ability to serve people. If you don't think about this any other way, think of it as a business, common sense decision for our city. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Would staff like to respond to any of the issues raised by the commenters? It does sound like
So yes, just a few. I took notes during the entire public comment. I did hear a lot of comments about zoning, land use process, safe park, etc. I'm more than happy to provide more information on those topics if the commission is interested. However, if you feel you have the information you need, I don't need to speak to those items. A few things that I do want to clarify, just so that there is full transparency and everyone is aware. This process tonight and the use permits in general are in no way looking to close the church itself. As I mentioned in my presentation, a church or place of worship is permitted by right in this location and in several locations within the city. The proposed school and medical clinic are separate uses from that church, and they're not tied to the church activity from a land use perspective itself. So I do want to make sure that that is very clear. In no way are we looking to shut down the place of worship. When it does come to the use permits that are being proposed, we are also in support of those use permits. I mean, I think that is demonstrated by the fact that the zoning administrator approved the use permits. Yes, there are conditions that require the operator to meet building and fire safety codes and address violations. Building and fire safety codes are statewide. They are not unique to the city of Fairfield, and so staff is doing our job as best we can while still coordinating with City Church to make sure that we can offer services as best as possible. However, we are obligated to meeting those regulations, to meeting those codes. And so those were the items at that high level I wanted to emphasize. But again, I'm more than happy to address more specific zoning, land use process, safe park, any of the different permit application procedures that you heard from the team here.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will now close the public hearing and return it to the commission for our deliberations. Commissioner Singh?
Yes,
I think we should take a 5-minute break for.
That'd be good. We'll take a 5-minute break and we'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, right?
I know. No, there's no room to discuss. Oh, you have it, yeah. Good to meet you.
we will continue on with the hearing. All right, thank you. I am going to reopen the hearing so we can hear from our the attorneys, and then I will close the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take this opportunity to respond to a few of the legal arguments that have been raised, and this is coming from the perspective of staff and staff's recommendation. So I just want to let the public know that we did receive the letter that was sent by the church's attorney. We have reviewed it. We reviewed the case law that was cited in it, and we did not find it to be applicable or dispositive of this situation. Much of the case law came from out of state, which means it's not binding, or it involves situations that are not the same as the situation here. And I also just want to remind the commission and the public that here it's the applicant that has the burden of showing that it would be illegal for the city to condition the use permit on the payment of the citations, and we've found no case law that would say that the city is prohibited from doing so, and so we don't believe that burden has been satisfied. And with respect to the argument that this is punitive, staff would respond that no, this is not punitive. This isn't about just waiving the fees for past violations. This is really about ensuring that the proposed future uses do not become a nuisance or negatively impact the surrounding neighborhood. Of course, the city wants the project to succeed. However, we have to look out for the city, for potential liability, for health and safety of the community. And so it's very important that the nuisance be addressed through the citation payment of fines. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing. Commissioners, we will start down at the end. Commissioner Singh, comments?
Yes, thank
questions?
you. I did have a question. Pastor Scott said that City Church had been operating for around 16 to 17 years, and the pastor, please correct me, but it was operating as a church, medical clinic, and lodging facility for 16 to 17 years?
It was operating as a church for 17. The housing portion was launched at about 16 years. We were there for a year before doing it. We saw the need in the community. That's what inspired us to do that. The clinic has only been in operation for, I'm going to shoot 4 years. 4 years.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. And then also
one question, one thing. Because you asked a question to the audience, I have to reopen the public hearing. So let me reopen the public hearing, and then if you could ask the question again, and the pastor can respond. That way we're within the law. Yeah, and then Pastor Mulvey, if you come up and speak to respond to that question, that'd be great. Thank you.
Does he need to ask the question first?
yes, I can ask the question again. So you'd mentioned that for 16, so City Church had been operating for 16 to 17 years as a church, medical clinic, and lodging facility, or like when did the medical clinic begin? When did the lodging begin?
Okay, so we came to Fairfield about 17 years ago at the request of our organization to see if we could either reestablish the church there that had failed or sell the property off and move it to build in a better place. We opted to stay and salvage. After being there a year and realizing we were sitting on a lot of space, it was brought to our attention that maybe we should reach out to the community and house and help those in the community that needed help, because we had a lot of empty space. And that was in about 16 years. And then the clinic came as an introduction from the pastor of Trinity Baptist Church. Greg introduced me to Dr. Klein, And Dr. Klein at that time was a surgeon with Kaiser, and he was looking to a space to reach the community through a clinic. We offered him part of our front building space to do that and to launch that.
Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Sir, before you step away from the, Scott, while I've got the hearing open, I'm going, Commissioners, do you have any other questions for the pastor?
Yeah, I do have a question from you. The only ground of appeal you have it to remove that condition when they approved your 2 applications, and you are not here for waiving the penalties, am I right?
That is correct. We're not asking for the fines to be waived, and it's my understanding legally we can't do that. We're asking you to allow us to move ahead with the approved conditional use permit and remove item number 2 as a stipulation.
Correct. I just want to clarify myself. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. You, yeah.
Get comfy.
Sorry.
We'll let you know when you can go.
Are you going to give me the green card again? No.
Get comfy. So one of the questions that I have is, it was repeated several times that you were not aware that these fines were compounding and going up and up and up.
That
Is that
correct.
my understanding?
That is correct. We received no notification whatsoever.
Okay, so if you'd like to see this.
Okay.
This was supposedly presented to you, and it clarifies that on a first offense, you're going to pay X, on a second, Y, and on a third, Z. And so I'm concerned that maybe there was a little strategy involved here, and that strategy was, if we get that number big enough, it'll be so absurd that this panel here is going to feel like we can't possibly ask you to do that. Because let's face it, the work you do is amazing. And I applaud you for the work, and I love that all of these people here have been helped. But it feels to me like you have chosen to ignore things that could have been addressed much earlier. I don't know if there's a question in there.
Well, there is a statement and a question, I think. So to answer the question, I have never seen that form, ever. I have received a form with the $210,000 fine and penalties, and I received a $310,000 notice. That has gone to our corporate office, and they notify me immediately, email me, and mail me hard copies of anything received from the city. I've never seen that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the pastor right now?
Yes, I have another question. Oh, if you had a question too, I don't want to.
No. I actually don't.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So Pastor, I'm sorry. From April 12th of 2022 to July of 2023, that's approximately 1 year and 3 months. Violations. So the very first violation, or actually citation, came 1 year and 3 months after the first inspection that happened in April 12th of 2022. Was there any process or remedy undertaken to address any of those violations during that approximately 1 year, 3 month mark?
I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not seeing the packet that you have, and my memory is racing because so much has happened. But from the initial inspection, there were a number of things that were of concern, and I agree. I didn't know that a backflow needed to be updated. I did not know that the fire department needed updated equipment so that the alarms rang in the fire department. And as I was told those that we needed to do that. Our first concern was getting the roof on and finishing the roof. After certifying that the roof was not, the integrity of the roof was not at stake, and it was a safe roof, and we could go ahead and roof it. So that was my number one. That was $88,000. You're looking at two backflows off the street. One we found that we didn't need to update because it was grandfathered in. Between that first visit and a year, we spent over $150,000. Mind you, that we didn't have a dime of that. That came through our plea publicly for help. It came from contractors volunteering their time and doing the work. We have churches represented here right now that have sent people to do work, even recently to finish the laundry room. Liberty Baptist is here. Not Trinity Baptist, Liberty Church is here. And they have graciously sent us tradesmen to help. Otherwise, we would still be here not able to finish what we were doing. We still wouldn't be done.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close the public hearing, and we'll go back to discussion. The formality of it all.
I'm so sorry to cut you. I know you want to close the public hearing, but very quickly, if you can reopen. I do just want to clarify the documents listed in your packet are all documents that were corresponded between the city and City Church. So I can't speak to if they were reviewed or received, but per our records, everything within this packet is information that we provided to City Church and or information they provided back to us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh, any other comments before we move on?
Yes, I did have a comment, but actually I had a question, but the question was for staff. Do we have to reopen the?
Yeah, you can do directly, right?
Yeah, if it's just a question for staff, yeah.
Okay. Yes. I wanted to ask, there have been other operators and organizations specifically on North Texas and I believe it's East Tabor Avenue who have lost their business permit when violations are made. And so when I see that the violations were not remedied after 1 year and 3 months, and there is a pathway forward for City Church, to me, it represents incredible leniency. And I think it's incredibly good because City Church is a good organization. And so my question is, what was the most recent example of that? I believe that there was a towing company or something like that. And so what happened with them? Now I understand that's a business permit and this is a conditional use permit, but could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes.
And then what happened with that process? Did they also get 1 year and 3 months? I'm sorry.
That's okay, sorry. Yes, there have been in maybe the last year or so, several businesses where we've had to revoke their business license or their use permit due to illegal activity. A couple of them have been variety spoke shops or towing businesses. In this particular instance, a church or place of worship does not require a business license, is not issued a business license. But again, we are not looking at the church use itself. What we're looking at is the school and the medical clinic and the boarding portion or the lodging portion. Because these activities have been functioning without our oversight or without our permission, we don't actually have business licenses on file for them. Should this use permit be approved and move forward, the next step for City Church would be to obtain a business license for those activities. So in this particular instance, we wouldn't necessarily go down that same process or that pathway to revoke a license. But I will say, I do believe, knowing the philanthropy that is tied to these uses, the city has been trying very hard to work with City Church in order to progress it forward. So that level of leniency that you may be seeing, I would agree with, whereas these other uses that you're referencing, they were not providing something effective or important for the community. They were straight illegal operations that were preying on people.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would add that although there's no business license for these operations, there is an analogy in that there are enforcement actions that the city can take for a business, revoking the business license is a part of that. With this one, you've seen through the discussions tonight, there's a whole series of actions that the city can take, including those fines.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay. Commissioner Reese.
Not at this time. I don't have
Okay.
any questions.
Sashi?
Yes. I do have a question from the city staff. And since I got clarified earlier that it's on a short ground of, the condition should be removed while approving those two applications. And what are the other options with the city to recover that amount from the appellants?
What are the other options for City Church to meet the citations? Is that the question?
Let's say that they owe city $310,000. So we are putting a condition they should settlement with the police citations and violations. And are there any other option available to us other than putting a condition on in these two permits?
So your options for this evening is you can approve the appeal. So in that sense, you would not include a condition to require the citation to be paid or a payment plan to be entered. So that would be one option. Alternatively, you could think of a way to modify the condition. However, again, I want to caution the commission that you cannot modify whether or not the citation should have been issued or the quantity, the total figure. So modifying that condition, I'm not sure. You guys are a very intelligent bunch. Perhaps you could think of a way to modify it, but in staff's opinion, your options are to accept the appeal and remove the condition or deny the appeal and keep the condition.
What I meant, how would the legitimacy of putting this condition on this application? So in the past, have we ever done with the other applicants put any conditions like that?
I don't know that, for me personally, and I'll let Dave Feinstein, planning manager here, speak, but in my 10 years here, we have not had a project in which there are administrative citations outstanding for a use permit application we've received.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would answer that. This is, I can't think of another situation that was similar to this, so there's nothing really analogous that we could point to for options.
And I don't know if this entirely answers your question, but to add a little more to the conversation, I do want to emphasize that whether or not the condition is included with the use permit does not eliminate the citations on their own. So should the commission approve the appeal, remove the condition, those citations do still exist and do still need to be resolved. They just would not be tied to these use permits.
And I'll note that the condition as written, one of the things that's been discussed by the code enforcement staff is the ability of City Church to enter into a payment plan. The commission can't make that decision. Ultimately, that's the code enforcement staff and their team make that decision about how to remedy the whole of that fine. But just be aware that as a part of the condition as written, it does leave that as an option for the city to use here. So in other words, it's possible they don't have to pay it all up front. They could enter into a payment plan with the city to pay that over time.
So let me say if I owe the government, say, X amount of tax, or I owe X amount of tax to the city, they can put lien on my property. Or if the property is not owned by me, if it's a corporation, they can put a lien on the property of the corporation. So is there any possibility like that in the present case?
To the best of my knowledge, I'm not familiar with a process in that regard. I'll look out to my crowd here if I can find Jeremy. Oh, you're right behind me.
So your question, so I understand it right, can we lien the property for these fines, these administrative fines? The real answer to administration fines, no. I cannot lien the property on administrative fines. That has been discussed in many cases, so the answer is no, I cannot lien the property.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Greavy?
pass me for a moment.
We'll go to Commissioner Matthews online.
So, my opinion is the good of what they are resulting in is more important to the city than these fines. So personally, I'm in favor of approving the appeal.
Thank you. Commissioner Werblin, questions, comments, statements?
Good evening. I don't have any questions right now, but I've been trying to reconcile what has happened in this case over these many years during COVID, having a relationship with the city, trying to do good work for the unhoused population or people that have been traumatized with drugs and alcohol. And I know for the commissioners, we don't have the purview to do anything with the fines, and so I'm not going to comment on that piece, although I do have a strong opinion about that. But it seems like between a corporation, an institution, a church, and a city trying to do good, we end up here tonight. And I'm just unsure of what happened and what went wrong with just the whole process. In what ways are we responsible, we using that word, for the city of Fairfield to help organizations when they have these violations and code violations to be able to remedy that situation? And I'm not going to debate what you received or didn't receive or timelines in that area, but I'm struggling to reconcile this. And then also hearing that there has been some progress made with the, I think there was two, I don't know, I took a note here from the fire marshal. Some things have been resolved, but there's still more work to be done. And then for me personally, similarly to Commissioner Matthews, it's not sitting well with me to attach this fees with this new two approvals for the school, the educational program, and the medical program, and tying this to it, which in essence is, to me, I think just saying no, because it's going to be something that obviously the church isn't going to be able to come up with, I don't know, that money, or I don't know, or maybe the plan. And this also just seems, with these requirements of someone that's trying to get employment and they have a criminal record, and that record keeps following them every time they try to apply for a job. It's like, no, that's what the analogy is, kind of what's sitting with me. And so right now, just listening to the comments and even with our staff, and I appreciate all the work that they've done with the fire marshal and the code. But right now, I'm just not sitting with tying this to the other work that they're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. My turn. So I have a whole lot of comment and some questions through there. When I first read through it, I'm thinking, are these punitive? You know, I mean, when you go from $550 a day to $103,000, then it goes to $200,000, then you got a 50% late fee. I'm wondering, is it punitive or is it bullying? And when I look at this and how I was raised, churches have been a refuge, not only in this country, but in this world for centuries. And $19,000 fine for pest control, that's bullying. That's not just punitive. And when I looked up on one of the pages, it says the conditions in question provide a level of certainty that any remaining violations be addressed, allowing the property to operate safely and appropriately moving forward. Moreover, the use permit conditions are the strongest tool to ensure the fines are actually paid or that the applicant is in good standing on a payment plan. There again, that answered that original question as, is it punitive? I go through this because I don't just have a problem with number 2, which is all Fairfield Police Department citations associated with the subject property to date must be paid in full or a payment plan put in place. That is number 1. Number 4 says all illegal land use activities on the subject property must cease immediately. Known activities include medical offices, residential housing, overnight safe parking. Activities may be permitted if the applications and procedures are followed through with the Planning Department and Homeless Services Division. And I ask this question of why. And the reason I ask why is, since the time that Christ existed, churches have been a refuge for people. And whether God with a loaf of bread and a fish, right? We go back and the documentation of these effects on how the church affects our daily lives, because I also believe that America works because our faith-based organizations work and help our country. So overnight safe parking is not allowed for City Church, but every other church is allowed to do it. We can go downtown after this meeting, we can walk downtown, and we're going to see homeless people camped out in storefronts. You can go to, there are other churches in this town right now, and I won't name them, but they're allowed to offer safe parking. You can go to businesses in this town where we know that there are people parking in those business lots every single night, but they're not being stopped from doing that, but City Church is, when that is the basis of Christianity and every other religion is taking care of the people. That's number 4. Number 5, number 14 is just being an individual. The indemnification of the city for any and all of these things is wrong as well. But I have serious problems with numbers 2 and 4 with this thing, and got to go through my notes so I don't forget. This for years, and going back to this for years, and we're not talking 4 years. We're not talking pre-COVID. We're talking for 15 to 17 years. The things that City Church has done. We've known, because I've known for years and years and years, some of these things that have gone on, whether it's been the motorhome in the back or the tents, that the city encouraged that and didn't have a problem with that for 15 years, but then all of a sudden, out of the blue, it becomes a main problem. And transparency is my big thing in life. I'm sorry, I believe in transparency. And because that's our job up here, is to ensure that the people are represented properly. And so when I talk about these things, the city knew about these things. The city encouraged these things. The city brought people for this help. They originally gave them the tents that the city condemned. There's something wrong here. There's something we're all missing, that we're not getting the whole story. And then, from a personal standpoint, yes, I do know that working with this city, with another church at one time, it took 9 months to get a building permit for tenant improvements. So the dates that the city gave City Church to do, I personally know for a fact were unreasonable dates. So with that, I also. The attorney here from Pacific mentioned federal religious land use protections. And so, because curiosity gets the best of me, I decided to go there. And what RELUPIA says is, part of what the government, this is our federal government, bars land use regulations that substantially burden religious exercise except where justified by compelling government interest that the government pursues in the least restrictive way possible. That is, and we were given a lot of case law. And so when I look at all this stuff, it's like, this was done intentionally to, I wonder at times, because the first time I read through it all was, all these fines, is this a ploy that we're just going to keep raising the fines so they have to give us the land? Is it a government land grab? And some of these civil rights divisions, you have to take into consideration, and that's where I am right now. So, are there any other comments?
Yes, just had a comment. Just want to say, Pastor Moravian City Church is a fantastic organization. You've been in our community now for 15 to 16 years. Your success rate in your program is 80%. And as evidenced by our meeting today, there are numerous stories of your dedication to the church, and you've built the community. And so I am leaning towards approving the appeal of City Church, but it must be noted, but it must be noted that staff was incredibly patient during this process. I think that's incredible patience by staff. And number two, there were repeated violations here over an extended period of time. There were serious public health and safety concerns, and there was unpermitted construction, and there were unsafe living conditions. If that happened at a multifamily building, if that happened in a commercial building, I would expect staff to come in and raise concern over that. But City Church is a phenomenal organization. There's a pathway forward, and I believe and have confidence that the conditions and violations will be remedied. And so those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
I just have one question. I don't know if I'm permitted to ask this, but if we do approve their appeal, what happens with the, what's the next steps, or what happens with the citations?
Sure. So if the appeal is approved, there is that same 15 business day appeal period after your guys' action. Once again, any person could appeal your decision to the city council. And then our city council is our last layer of authority. So that's just in terms of appeal process. What happens to the citations is the citations do still exist. They exist regardless of whether they are tied to the use permit or not. And so our code enforcement will have to continue to coordinate with City Church in order to get those citations resolved.
Thank you. And the only other comment I want to make is that I did sit here and appreciate hearing all those stories from everyone and how much they appreciate the church and what the church is doing in the community. It was really touching to hear just so many people and how their lives were changed, and I really appreciate hearing that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Grady?
I think there's enough blame to go everywhere. I really do. And I do not believe for one moment that the city was trying to be punitive. I don't. They have rules, they have guidelines that they must follow. And I do believe, in my mind, that there was a choice to ignore by the city church some of these items that came through. Maybe you felt they were nonsense. Maybe you felt they were just too expensive and you just simply couldn't deal with them. But for anyone in here to believe for a moment that these people over here were being punitive, I'm sorry you feel that way. You talked about love. Well, I think there's a lot of love. I know these people pretty well, and I don't believe for one moment that that was their intent. The work you do is remarkable, and it does need to be acknowledged. My concern is going forward with a health facility and with an educational facility. I pray that you will follow the legal guidelines that are set out, because I don't want to hear about reading the newspaper or otherwise that I'm making a bad decision tonight. And when I go in your favor, and then I find out later that I got used. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Matthews, do you have any further comments?
No, I would, are you prepared for a motion?
The commissioners have the floor, so if you so wish to make a motion, we will accept it.
I move that we approve the appeal.
I second that.
And
So, hold on one second. So you're here tonight to make two decisions. One is to approve of both the use permits, and then the second is whether or not the condition number 2 should apply. So if I'm hearing Commissioner Matthews correctly, I think what he's saying is he wants to uphold the decision of the zoning administrator to approve of the conditional use permit, which is UP 2024-005, to operate a personal and social development school program and to operate a medical office, which is UP 2024-006 at 743 East Tabor Avenue in Fairfield, California, and granting the city church's appeal to remove condition number 2 for both of the use permits.
That is correct.
Okay.
And can I confirm, which commissioner made the second?
Reese.
Reese, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. I still have a problem with no overnight safe parking, but any further discussion?
I just have a question for Madam Attorney. We have a motion and a second. So does that mean that now we take the vote or more discussion? I'm under the assumption that this is the opportunity to do the vote.
Now you're supposed to vote.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
So now we'll take a vote, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Singh,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Paul.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Greavy,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Werblin,
Yes.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Yes. So, the motion passes, and on behalf of all the commissioners, and it's said before, thank you all for coming out. We hear your stories, we understand, we're with you, and we pray for you all. So thank you all for showing up. We still have a little bit more business to do, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take a 1-minute break here while right, director's reports and commissioners' comments. Mr. Feinstein, do you have any items for the director's report?
Yes. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay. A couple items.
Can you take your comments outside, please, folks, so we can finish our business?
Okay. All right. Couple of items. First of all, just to keep you updated on your upcoming schedule, we actually have 3 items coming to you for your next meeting, including the continued storage and a couple of other items that we'll notice for you. So we will definitely be having your next meeting. And then I am pleased to announce that we are coming to the conclusion of our general plan update process. Earlier this summer, you reviewed the draft general plan. We are moving into the adoption phase for the general plan, which will start with a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council. The way that's going to look is we have taken a whole series of comments from the commission, members of the public, other agencies. We will be recommending certain changes to the draft general plan. And coming before you, you will see what those changes are, as well as any other comments that we received. Perhaps that we didn't recommend changes be made, so we'll talk with you about that. What we are looking to do, based on the calendar's kind of odd. We are looking to go to the City Council in early December. It does not align neatly with your schedule. We actually have an extra Friday, not an extra Friday, I'm sorry, an extra Wednesday in October. So what we are looking to do is to hold a special meeting of the Planning Commission on November 6th. That would be Wednesday, November 6th, which actually would be 2 weeks after your next meeting. So you'd sort of be on that same schedule. We'll be reaching out to you probably tomorrow or the next day just to confirm who's able to attend a special meeting. With that extra Wednesday in there, it really kind of throws things off. So hopefully we'll be able to get you all to attend on a special meeting on the 6th. If you're not able to, because it's a special meeting, there's no penalty. There's limitations if you miss a meeting. You also can attend remotely if you're not able to be here in person. So we'll be reaching out to you most likely tomorrow just to confirm who's available on the 6th. So November 6th, correct. Wednesday be at your regular time, 2 weeks after your next meeting. So hopefully that works out for all of you, but we'll follow back up with you. But we're really excited to be bringing this project to a conclusion. Lots of public discussion, lots of public debate, lots of input from the commission in multiple iterations over the last 4 years. So looking forward to doing that. So those are my comments.
I have a question. For the November 6th meeting, is that just with the planning commissioners, or is that a joint meeting with city council? And then can you talk a little bit about the December 3rd meeting with city council?
Sure.
Thank you.
November 6th is just the Planning Commission. It's not a joint meeting. You will actually be asked to take action. This is the first meeting where you're actually being asked to make a formal recommendation to the City Council regarding the final content of the document. So this would be your meeting to make a recommendation to the City Council. On the 3rd of December, the City Council is scheduled to take action, consider your recommendation, and take action. What we will do, we've already, in the past, we've sent out to you the link to the draft. I'll resend that tomorrow so that if you want to get started just reviewing back again what was all in that draft for the general plan, the climate action plan, as well as if you want to relook at the environmental impact report, You can get started, relooking at that. The number of changes will be very small in relation to that document. And so at least 2 weeks before that November 6th meeting, we will get out to you the full packet of comments and proposed changes to the draft. So you'll have at least an extra week to digest that material. But you can always get started by just re-looking at the draft, because the vast majority of what's in the draft would continue as a part of the staff will make a recommendation to you. We'll give you that final document, but the vast majority of what's in that draft would continue to be there. Commissioner Kennedy, I know you commented on some typos on the parks. To this point, we haven't released any new documents since that draft last July, but I can guarantee you what will come to you in that final document will have those park names corrected, among a few other things. But we'll send you, at least a couple weeks before that meeting, we'll send you the full set of proposed changes to the draft so that you can digest that. But again, it won't be a large number. So those are my comments. Any other questions about that?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So just to summarize, so then next week, or I'm sorry, not next week, but our next planning commission meeting, it will be regarding the Horizon self-storage facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will also have a meeting to discuss the draft general plan as well. So
Correct.
There's going to be 2 items for the next meeting. And then there's going to be a special meeting on November 6th. And what was the,
to be clear, your next meeting, your regularly scheduled meeting, there'll be 3 normal items for you, one of which will be the continued Horizon self-storage item. The general plan isn't going to be discussed at your next meeting. We're looking to do it at a special meeting on November 6th. And that means that's the only item that would be on your agenda.
Okay. Commissioner reports. We'll start with Commissioner Matthews. That way you can go to bed.
Well, I just wanted to compliment the staff, as has been already mentioned, that it's a difficult process, and there are issues, as Commissioner Greavy put forth, that just were not perhaps appropriately taken, whether out of financial stress or otherwise. But I'm appreciative of how the commission undertook tonight's action. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh, final comments?
No comments.
Commissioner Reese?
No comments.
Sashi?
No comments.
Commissioner Greavy?
Good night.
Commissioner Vice Chair?
No comments.
Thank you. Only 2 things I have to say. The Fresh Laundries on North Texas had their 2-year anniversary a week ago. Went very well. Amazing how much wholesale business they have. And then today was the 71-unit Fairhaven Commons housing project on Sunset. And I want to thank Commissioner Greavy and Commissioner Paul for coming as well. It was great. It's amazing to see again the work and how the city worked with private enterprise and did this amazing project, and the people there came and spoke, and other residents were there to talk about how much it really meant for them and how happy they were, how it was just such a great collaboration. So hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more projects like that where we're making great differences. Commissioner Greavy.
I'm glad you brought that up. I even brought it with me. This Fairhaven Commons is an amazing project. And I felt like the public was beating up a little on our city today, this evening. And this never would have gotten off the ground without the tremendous effort put forth by the city and the county of Solano and multiple other groups. and it's beautiful. If you haven't been, you need to take the opportunity to at least walk through.
Thank you. All right. We are adjourned
All right.
till our next meeting. Thank you, everybody.